Hey folks, this is City Boy Gone Wild from cityboygonewild.com, back in my own little homegrown collard green patch. And you've seen me cook the collard greens before, or the results of me cooking the collard greens. I'm going to try something different today with the collard greens picked this morning. I'm going to try to incorporate these greens into some of my fried eggs from my own hens raised naturally. So I'm trying to get a real nutrient dense breakfast going this morning, this early spring morning. So between these naturally grown collard greens and the eggs from my naturally raised hens, it ought to be power packed with nutrients. So I'll be right back and show you the greens I've picked this morning. Okay, here's the greens that I'm washing, that I'm going to try something new here and incorporate them into my eggs. What I've done is I've made a bath. You can't see the sun so much, but I put some soap, actually soap in here, dishwashing soap, and a lot of salt. And I don't know if I needed really both of those, but you want to kill any, or I want to kill any bugs or anything. I want protein, but I don't want bugs from outside on my greens when I cook them. So I know my mom used to put a little detergent in the water when she was washing her greens. I put some dishwashing liquid and made it real sudsy and let them set a little bit, and put a lot of salt in here. So maybe that's overkill, maybe it's dangerous. Don't try this at home. Look it up, what's the proper way to do it, but that's what I'm doing. All right, so I'll come back in just a moment here and show you the next step. And I've set these on a paper towel, and I'm going to kind of get some of the excess water off of them. Probably damp them, pat them. Oops, I'm going to have to rewash those that fell off on the floor. So we'll be right back. Okay, folks, you see the greens that I've cut up here. I'm cutting them real small. And actually what I've done is to tear these up first, and then I'm cutting them up, bunches of them up real small. And usually I'm using two hands to do this, but I'm holding the camera here. So when you do this, you can definitely use two hands, and I'll probably chop these up real fine before I start cooking them. And this may look like a lot, but as you know, those of you that cook greens, that these are going to sort of, well, I hate to use the term wilt when you start cooking them, and it'll shrink down. The volume will look a lot less. So we'll be right back. Okay, folks, here, let me turn the fan off a moment. Hopefully that's better. You can hear me. I turned the fan off momentarily. I've got this pan on low heat. We've got this extra virgin olive oil from Spain. We're going to put some of that in here. And usually I don't like to do this, but we're going to use our pot filler here. I usually like to add water before I even turn things on, but I'm trying to shoot this video here and maybe doing this the wrong way. Just a little water so my greens won't totally dry out. So we got the olive oil. I went into my little special stash of garlic and herb seasoning, salt-free. I don't leave this in the regular. Let me turn this down even more. I should have maybe done this on my simmer burner. These burners, this is a Blue Star oven stove setup, and some of the eyes have a lower BTU, British thermal units, I think. They have a lower temperature especially for simmering. I think most of the eyes, the burners is what I'm talking about. Most of the burners get up to 25,000 BTU, which is not what I want to do with this. So I think we put the garlic and herb, salt-free seasoning, and I've got some Himalayan pink salt. Yeah, this is Himalayan pink salt, and it's got this grinder on this, and I'm going to try to do this with one hand while I'm shooting the video. You turn this top to grind, and I may have to, let's see, do some more of this. The Himalayan pink salt has a very pronounced taste to me, or it's not overpowering, but it's a distinctive taste, and it's supposed to, I believe, be healthier and add more salt content, but with lower sodium potency, or it's not going to be as you're going to get the salt taste, but I think not as high a sodium content, if that makes sense. I believe that's what it is, what they say for people who are trying to cut back on the salt, which I'm trying to be careful about salt to some extent. I haven't totally cut out salt. And here's the greens totally chopped up here, and again, I'm one hand cooking here. Don't do this at home, folks. I'll add the rest of this in when I stop this video, so I can use two hands, and we'll just get this nice and cooked where it'll start shrinking down some, the size of this, before we add. We'll get this kind of nice and a bit more soft with this heat before we add the eggs in. Here, let's see. Let me see if I can use my hands and add this in. Yeah, that's working. May have a little bit of a mess to clean up. And I think I mentioned I got this dash salt-free season from my little special seasoning stash. I don't keep everything in the general house pantry because it will get used up and not replaced. Those of you that are in households where there's multiple people cooking, you know what I'm saying. All right, so let's get this cooked, and we'll come back when we're adding the eggs in this. I'm back again. Before I add the eggs, I decided to add a bit more water in these greens and turn it up to sort of a medium heat, like medium, not total medium, but kind of medium low heat. And as you can see, this is about, I don't know, 3-4 minutes into cooking here. And I may even add a bit more water. The water is actually evaporating. And this is the CityBoyGoneWild.com's experimental kitchen. So you got to realize that some of the things I'm doing, I'm just kind of experimenting. So you got to watch what you're cooking, watch it, and adjust. And you're seeing this live by sort of experimenting here. Okay, let's turn the heat down a little bit. I'm going to add a bit more water, and I'm almost tempted not to add eggs in this. This is really smelling good. Let me add a bit more water, and we'll see if we're going to add eggs in this or whether we're going to cook the eggs on the side. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Okay, folks, I got a confession to make. And my confession is I'm not going to mix the eggs with the collard greens. I apologize. That was my original intent when I started this little cooking video. But I tasted those greens after about 10-15 minutes of cooking, and they were good. And you got to know when to stop tinkering when you're cooking. Otherwise, you can go from perfection to a mess. So we'll cook the eggs. These are from my hands. You've got a little virgin olive oil in this. And that's it. These eggs are so good. These are from my hens that I raised the chickens naturally, and let them run around in a fairly large area, feed them natural feed, and let them scratch and sort of forage in their area. And I've got this on low heat with just a little bit of olive oil in the pan, and the taste is delicious, just like that. So we'll come back momentarily and show you the greens and the eggs plated together. Be right back. All right. Welcome back. This is going to be the last segment in this video. I'd like to give a shout out to some friends back home in California in the Bay Area. Shout out to Vanessa and Merle. Vanessa was encouraging me without even knowing it last night to get back in the groove on my posting on cityboygonewild.com, and our friend Merle was wishing she had some of these eggs that my hands have been laying, but unfortunately not sure shipping from North Carolina all the way to California is going to be a good idea with eggs, given how fragile eggs are. Okay, so shout out to Vanessa and Merle back in hometown California Bay Area. Okay, so what we have here is the greens that we cooked, and we pan fried those, sort of simmered them over low heat initially, then kicked it up into a medium heat, adding additional water. Total cook time was about 10 to 15 minutes. So I guess I've blown the myth out of the water that you've got to do like, old school and cook greens for hours and hours. These greens are tender and they are tasty. My original intent was I was going to mix the greens with the eggs, but when I just cooked the greens just for 10 or 15 minutes, they were so delicious. I didn't want to mess things up, so I'm going to eat them. They're good. And then these eggs, I just scrambled those over a low heat and olive oil with no additional seasoning. They are delicious that way. I'm told my hens lay very good eggs. And then we've got our tea, and then the bagels. They're everything bagels. I think that's what they're called. Yeah, just took a quick look at the bag. They're called everything. They have all sorts of things in them and on them, and I think that's why they call them everything. I think there's sunflower seeds, sesame seeds. Toasted that up and added a little bit of grape jelly. Now, I didn't make this jelly, but keep tuned to cityboygonewild.com, because when we get later in the year, when the wild blackberries start to come in season, I'm going to try to get my hands on a bunch of free blackberries, and I'd like to make some blackberry jam. So we may give that a try when we get into maybe August, September, thereabout. And so these eggs, again, raised by me, collards by me, and more as time permits and God willing, I want to show you more of the stuff that I've raised or actually went out and hunted and gathered and got for free, basically. All right, well, let me sit down and enjoy this delicious, wholesome breakfast. Till next time.